The rain tapped a relentless rhythm against the windows of our brownstone as I stood in the kitchen, staring at the two faint pink lines on the pregnancy test. My hands trembled, not from fear but from a fragile, radiant hope I hadn't dared to feel in years. At 37, after 2 miscarriages and countless nights of whispered prayers, I was pregnant. Twins, the doctor had confirmed that afternoon, her voice warm with excitement as she pointed to the flickering heartbeats on the ultrasound screen. 2 tiny lives, a miracle I'd almost stopped believing in. I'd spent the day planning the perfect moment to tell Ethan, my husband of 9 years. The dining room table was set with care linen napkins, candles flickering in their glass holders, a plate of roasted lamb with rosemary, his favorite. I'd even slipped into the emerald dress he loved, the one he said made my eyes look like forest pools. The anticipation buzzed through me as I heard his key turn in the lock just after 7. Ethan stepped inside, shaking rain from his dark hair, his tailored coat damp at the shoulders. He was still striking tall, with sharp cheekbones and gray eyes that could shift from tender to piercing in an instant. A partner at Carver & Stone, one of Boston's most prestigious law firms, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of a man who always knew the next move. "Hey, sweetheart," he said, his voice smooth but distracted as he hung his coat. "Smells amazing in here." I smiled, stepping forward with the little white box I'd wrapped in gold ribbon. The pregnancy test nestled inside. "I have something for you." He raised an eyebrow, loosening his tie as he took the box. "What's this?" "My birthday's not for months." "Just open it," I urged, my heart pounding. He untied the ribbon with practiced ease, lifting the lid. His fingers stilled as he saw the test, the 2 lines unmistakable. For a moment silence stretched between us, thick and heavy. I waited for the grin, the embrace, the joy we'd dreamed of through years of trying. Instead, his jaw tightened, and he set the box on the counter with a deliberate slowness that made my stomach twist. "This is unexpected," he said finally, his tone flat, his gaze fixed somewhere past me. I blinked, caught off guard. "Unexpected? Ethan, we've been trying for this. 3 years, 2 losses, this is what we wanted." He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "Yeah, I know. It's just the timing, Claire. With the partnership vote next month, things are intense at the firm. I wasn't expecting this now." The candles flickered, casting shadows across his face, and I felt a chill settle into my bones. "I get that it's a lot," I said, forcing steadiness into my voice. "But we can handle it together. This is our family." He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he checked his watch, a sleek silver piece I'd given him for our 5th anniversary, and stepped back. "I've got some briefs to review tonight. We'll talk more tomorrow, okay?" "Ethan," I reached for his arm, but he was already moving toward his study, leaving the lamp untouched and the candles burning down alone. The front door didn't close behind him, but it might as well have. I stood there, the little white box mocking me from the counter, as the joy I'd carried all day curdled into something bitter. That night I barely slept. The king-sized bed felt cavernous without him, though he'd texted at midnight, "Staying at the office. Big case. Don't wait up." I lay awake, replaying his reaction, searching for the moment I'd misread him. We'd met 10 years ago at a fundraiser for a local arts foundation, where I'd been managing the event. Ethan, then a rising associate, had charmed me with his wit and persistence, asking me to dance despite my polite refusals. Our romance had been a whirlwind: dinners at rooftop restaurants, weekends in Nantucket, a proposal under a canopy of stars at his family's lake house. I'd left my career at his urging, trading late nights coordinating galas for a life as his wife, believing it was a fair exchange for the security he offered. The next morning I woke to silence. No clatter of coffee cups, no hum of the news from his tablet. The house felt hollow, pregnant with a tension I couldn't name. I made tea, coffee turned my stomach now, and waited. At 9:15 I heard his key in the lock. Ethan stepped inside, pristine in a fresh suit, his briefcase gleaming. He poured himself coffee without a glance in my direction, the air between us thick with unspoken words. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice eerily calm, "and this pregnancy, it's not what I want anymore." The mug slipped from my hands, shattering on the tile floor. Ceramic shards scattered like my fracturing world. "What are you saying? We've been trying for years." You pushed for the fertility treatments. That was before, he interrupted, adjusting his cufflinks, still not meeting my eyes. Before the partnership, before the life I see for myself now. I can't do this, Claire. The kids, the suburbs, the whole domestic scene, it's not me anymore. I gripped the counter, the room tilting. So what? You're leaving me because I'm pregnant? After everything we've been through? It's not just the pregnancy, he said, finally looking at me, his eyes cold and resolute. We've been drifting apart for years. You must have felt it too. This is just the push I needed to admit it. He pulled an envelope from his briefcase and slid it across the counter. These are the initial divorce papers. My lawyer will reach out to yours. The air left my lungs. You've already spoken to a lawyer? It's done, he said, checking his watch again. I've got a meeting at 10. I'll be at the Langham until I find a place. We'll figure out the rest later. And then he was gone, the door clicking shut behind him with a finality that echoed in my chest. I sank to the floor, surrounded by broken porcelain, the envelope staring down at me like a guillotine. Twins. I was carrying twins, and my husband had just walked away. The hours blurred into a haze. I don't know how long I sat there, the ultrasound photos from my purse clutched in my hands, 2 grainy shapes, 2 heartbeats, 2 lives depending on me. Eventually my phone rang, jolting me back to reality. It was Dr. Patel, my obstetrician. Claire, I've been reviewing your latest blood work, she said, her tone cautious. Your HCG levels are higher than typical for 12 weeks. I'd like you to come in for another ultrasound tomorrow. It's probably nothing, but I want to be sure. I agreed numbly, my mind still reeling. Twins were already confirmed, could there be more? The thought was overwhelming, but it gave me a strange anchor, a reason to move forward when everything else was crumbling. The next day, I lay on the exam table, the gel cold against my skin as Dr. Patel moved the wand. There they are, she said, smiling. Twin boys, both healthy. The elevated hormones are just your body adjusting to 2. You're doing great, Claire. Twin boys. I stared at the screen, tears slipping down my cheeks, joy, fear, uncertainty all tangled together. Is Ethan here? Dr. Patel asked gently. No, I whispered. He's busy. She handed me the photos without pressing further, and I left the clinic in a daze, the images trembling in my grip. I couldn't go home. Not to that empty house saturated with Ethan's rejection. Instead, I drove to the only place I could think of. The office of Lillian Voss, my late grandmother Beatrice's attorney. Beatrice had been a titan in her day, a widow who'd turned a small inheritance into a real estate empire. A woman who'd navigated a man's world with steel and grace. She died 6 years ago, leaving me a modest trust fund that Ethan had dismissed as insignificant, insisting we save it for a rainy day. Now, with the storm breaking over me, I needed Lillian's counsel. Claire, Lillian greeted me, her silver hair pulled into a neat chignon, her eyes sharp behind tortoiseshell glasses. This is a surprise. What's wrong? The words spilled out, Ethan's cold announcement, the divorce papers, the twins. Lillian listened, her expression hardening with each revelation. When I finished, she leaned back, tapping a pen against her desk. I see, she said. Are you safe? Can you come to my office now? I'm in my car outside the doctor's, I replied. I just found out it's twin boys. Twins, she repeated, and I heard the scratch of her pen. Claire, get here as soon as you can. There's something about Beatrice's trust we need to discuss. In person. Her urgency cut through my fog. What does the trust have to do with this? Not over the phone, she said firmly. Can you drive? Yes, I said, gripping the wheel. I'll be there by 2. The drive downtown was a blur, my mind racing. Beatrice's trust had been a straightforward inheritance, $250,000, enough for a cushion but hardly life-altering, especially compared to Ethan's income. Why the secrecy now? Lillian's office occupied a corner suite in a sleek glass tower, the city sprawling below like a chessboard. She met me at the door, her gaze softening as she took in my pale face and swollen eyes. Oh, Claire, she said, guiding me to a plush chair and pressing a glass of water into my hands. I'm so sorry about Ethan. But I'm not entirely shocked. What do you mean? I asked, my voice hoarse. Beatrice had her doubts about him, Lillian said, returning to her desk and opening a thick folder. That's why she structured your trust the way she did. I frowned, sipping the water. Structured it how? Lillian adjusted her glasses, her tone shifting to crisp professionalism. 6 months before she passed, Beatrice came to me with specific instructions. She added a contingency clause, a marriage protection provision with a pregnancy trigger. In simple terms, if your spouse abandoned you during a pregnancy, the trust's hidden assets would activate. Hidden assets? My head spun. What are you talking about? She didn't just leave you $250,000, Lillian said, her eyes gleaming with something like satisfaction. That was the visible portion. The real trust includes controlling interest in a boutique hotel chain, Harborview Properties, plus stakes in 3 commercial buildings downtown, and an investment portfolio. As of this morning, when Ethan served you those papers while you're pregnant, the contingency activated. The total value is just over $5.8 million. The glass nearly slipped from my hands. $5.8 million? That's impossible. Ethan said the trust was nothing. Ethan saw what Beatrice wanted him to see, Lillian corrected. She suspected he might prioritize his ambitions over you, especially if a better opportunity came along. She didn't predict this exactly, but she protected you against it. I shook my head, disbelief warring with a flicker of awe. She never said anything. She liked Ethan, called him charming. Perfect for me. To your face, Lillian said gently. To me, she called him a polished opportunist. She saw beneath his charm a man who'd discard anything that didn't serve his climb. The room felt too small, the air too thick. My grandmother, with her warm hugs and sharp wit, had built a fortress around me I'd never known existed. So what happens now? Now, Lillian said, leaning forward. Ethan has no idea what's coming. The trust's activation shifts the balance of power in your favor financially, legally, even professionally. Harborview's minority stakeholder is Triton Capital, a key client of Carver and Stone. Ethan's firm won't be thrilled to learn their golden boy is divorcing the woman who now controls their biggest client's pet project. I left Lillian's office with a folder of documents and a head full of chaos, the late afternoon sky bruised with storm clouds. My phone buzzed incessantly, texts from Ethan. Where are you? We need to talk about the separation. My lawyer needs your attorney's info. Are you ignoring me? I silenced it, letting him stew. For once he could wait. The Langham Hotel, where Ethan was staying, was a 15-minute drive. I hadn't planned to confront him, but my feet, or maybe my fury, carried me there. The lobby gleamed with marble and chandeliers, a stark contrast to the mess of my emotions. I approached the desk, summoning the poised mask I'd worn at countless firm events. I'm here to see Ethan Caldwell, I said. His wife. The clerk smiled. Of course, Mrs. Caldwell. He's in suite 804. Shall I call up? No, I said, forcing a smile. I'd like to surprise him. The elevator ride felt endless, my reflection in the mirrored walls showing a woman I barely recognized, exhausted. Yes, but with a new edge, a hardness in her eyes. On the 8th floor, I strode to 804 and raised my fist to knock, but froze. Voices drifted through the door, Ethan's low murmur and a woman's laughter, light and carefree. My hand dropped, ice flooding my veins. I'd been too stunned by the divorce to ask why, too trusting to suspect. Now the answer giggled on the other side of that door. I knocked 3 sharp raps that silenced the room. Footsteps approached and Ethan opened the door, his annoyance morphing into shock. Claire? What are you? Who's here, babe? A woman's voice called and my stomach lurched. Babe. 9 years and I'd never called him that. I pushed past him into the suite, spacious, modern, with a view of the glittering skyline. On the sofa sat a woman I recognized. Jessica Hale, a junior associate at his firm. Blonde, sharp-featured and impossibly young, she held a glass of wine, her smile faltering as she saw me. Oh, she said, setting the glass down. You must be Claire. Soon-to-be ex-wife, apparently, I said, my voice steady despite the rage clawing my chest. I turned to Ethan. How long? Claire, this isn't what it looks like, he said, his hands raised as if calming a client. Jessica's just pregnant, she blurted, her eyes darting to Ethan. You didn't tell her? The word hit like a slap. Pregnant. I repeated, staring at him. You're leaving me for her because she's pregnant? No, Ethan said quickly, stepping between us. That's not Jessica, you should go. She grabbed her purse, flustered. I thought she knew. Stay, I said, my calm unnerving even me. This concerns you too. I pulled the ultrasound photos from my bag and tossed them onto the coffee table. Congratulations, Ethan. Twins. Boys. Double the child support, I guess. His face went ashen as he stared at the images. Twins. Yes, I said, a bitter smile tugging my lips. And thanks to Beatrice, double the trouble for you. I just came from Lillian Voss's office. Did you know Grandma left me more than a little nest egg? A hotel chain, commercial properties, millions, and it all activated when you filed for divorce while I'm pregnant. Jessica hovered by the door, confusion etching her features. Ethan's eyes narrowed. You're bluffing. Beatrice didn't have that kind of money. She did, I said, opening Lillian's folder. And here's the kicker. Harborview Properties? Triton Capital's your firm's biggest client. Your bosses won't love that their star attorney's messy divorce now ties them to me. Ethan's bravado cracked. This is ridiculous. Even if it's true, it's a pittance in our settlement. Not anymore, I cut in. The trust triples its assets through an insurance policy Beatrice set up. And the prenup? Nullified by infidelity during pregnancy. Page 19, Clause 4C. You missed that one. He snatched the folder, scanning it, his jaw clenching. This is extortion. You're threatening my career. No, I said, stepping closer. I'm informing you of reality. What you do with it is up to you. But I suggest you rethink your strategy. Lillian's contacting your lawyer tomorrow. I walked out, leaving him with Jessica's stunned silence and the ultrasound photos scattered like accusations. In the car, the shaking started, violent tremors of adrenaline and grief. I was pregnant with twins, my marriage was a lie, and Beatrice had somehow handed me a weapon I hadn't known I'd need. The days that followed were a whirlwind of strategy and survival. Ethan's texts escalated from pleading to threatening, but I ignored them, letting Lillian and her team handle the fallout. I moved into my brother Miles's old loft downtown, a rental he'd kept after moving to Portland. It was sparse but peaceful, with a view of the Charles River that calmed my fraying nerves. Miles video called that night, his rugged face creased with worry. Claire, what the hell? Twins? Ethan's screwing around? How are you holding up? Barely, I admitted, managing a laugh. But I need your loft. I can't stay in that house with his ghost everywhere. It's yours, he said instantly. I'll send the codes. Do you want me to fly out? No, I've got this, I said, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. For the first time in years, I feel like me again. Lillian's updates came fast and fierce. Ethan's firm had launched an internal review after Triton Capital raised concerns about his undisclosed conflict with Harborview. His partnership vote was postponed indefinitely. By week's end, his lawyer sent a preliminary settlement offer: generous child support, full house ownership, a lump sum that dwarfed the prenup's terms. He was scrambling, but I wasn't ready to sign. Then came the call from Evelyn Pierce, wife of Triton CEO Richard Pierce. Claire, she said, her voice rich with warmth, Beatrice was a mentor to me decades ago. Richard and I heard about your situation from Lillian. We'd like to meet off the record, no lawyers. Just to talk. The invitation stunned me. Triton was Ethan's lifeline at the firm, yet here they were, reaching out to me. We met at their Beacon Hill townhouse, a grand space filled with art and history. Evelyn, elegant in her 60s, poured tea while Richard, a wiry man with keen eyes, studied me. We're pulling our business from Carver and Stone, Richard said bluntly. Ethan's conflict wasn't just sloppy, it was reckless. We can't trust a firm that lets that slide. And, Evelyn added, we'd like your input on Harborview's future. Beatrice trusted you with it for a reason. I left their home with a tentative alliance and a growing sense of my own power. Ethan had underestimated me, but so had I. Beatrice hadn't just left me money, she'd left me a legacy of strength I was only beginning to understand. 2 months later, I stood in the nursery of my transformed home. Watching painters add a mural of sailboats to the walls, twin boys deserved a world of adventure. At 8 months pregnant, I was a force of nature. My body a vessel for life, my mind a fortress of resolve. The divorce was finalized quietly, Ethan's firm forcing his hand to avoid scandal. He'd resigned, taken a job at a smaller practice in New York, and faded from my orbit. I'd taken Evelyn's offer, consulting part-time for Harborview while preparing for motherhood. The work rekindled a fire in me, organizing, creating, leading on my terms. Miles visited, assembling cribs and teasing me about my empire. Friends I'd lost to Ethan's world re-emerged, drawn by my newfound authenticity. On a crisp October morning, I gave birth to Lucas and Henry via C-section, their cries filling the delivery room with the music I'd never tire of. Holding them, I felt Beatrice's presence, her love, her foresight, her unyielding belief in me. Ethan sent a card and a check, but I didn't need his validation. My sons and I were enough. As winter settled over Boston, I sat by the nursery window, Lucas asleep on my chest, Henry in his crib. Beatrice's journal lay open beside me, her words a beacon. Claire has a fire that no one can extinguish, not even herself. When she finds it, she'll burn brighter than she ever imagined. I had found it, and I was blazing.
If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.